My college years weren't exactly glamorous. I struggled academically, didn't have a vibrant social life, and wasn't part of a fraternity. To top it off, I didn't have a girlfriend. Despite all these, I've never been one to complain. As fate would have it, I met an incredible partner in my late 30s who has been my rock ever since. We now share a cozy life together with our two cats, Black and Jack, and I'm excited to take our relationship to the next level soon. During college years, I and my friends Dave and Clint, who were also non-frat, would often find ourselves hanging out in Dave's dorm room, searching for ways to liven up our weekends. Whenever we stumbled upon an off-campus party, we'd jump at the opportunity. These parties, unaffiliated with any fraternity or the college itself, became our gateway to letting loose and having fun. One Friday afternoon, Clint sent a group text announcing that a girl he was talking to had invited us to a party relatively close by. We were all eager to socialize, and the prospect of meeting new people was too enticing to pass up. I joked that I was hoping to meet some unusual girls, and Dave chimed in, expressing his reservations about attending a party that might be too eccentric for our taste. Clint, however, assured us that it would be a normal gathering. With nothing better to do, we decided to take a chance. Dave enlisted the help of his brother Dan, who agreed to be our designated driver. As we set off towards the party, Clint began to express his doubts about attending. He was frustrated that the girl, Clara, he was talking to hadn't responded to his messages in hours, which wasn't entirely surprising given his reputation. Clint's second thoughts seemed like an overreaction, but his concerns added to the uncertainty surrounding the party. We'd already invested 30 minutes into the trip, so turning back wasn't an option. When Clint's friend, Clara's profile picture suddenly disappeared from his phone, we broke the news to him that she'd probably blocked him and chosen to attend the party with someone else. She was also the girl who hasn't replied his message for hours. Clint was visibly upset for the rest of the drive. Upon arriving at the party, we were immediately struck by the massive house, which dwarfed the other homes on the block. Clint wasn't ready to go in just yet, so we decided to pregame outside the car. We parked a little further down the street, cracked open some beers, and watched as people flooded into the house. The party was clearly going to be wild. Once Clint had achieved a satisfactory buzz, the four of us made our way towards the house, eager to join the festivities. As we entered the house, I immediately sensed that something was amiss. The atmosphere was peculiar, with harsh overhead lights illuminating the entire space, devoid of any ambient lighting. The guests were impeccably dressed, more suited for a formal dinner party than a raucous college gathering. The scene was jarringly and not in line with our expectations. While we didn't stick out like sore thumbs, our attire was noticeably more casual compared to the other guests. The music further added to the confusion, eschewing the typical party anthems for an ethereal, instrumental soundtrack that defied easy categorization. My friends and I exchanged bewildered glances, struggling to make sense of this surreal experience. We pressed Clint for more information about the party, but he claimed to be just as clueless as we were. As we explored the house, we discovered an abundance of alcohol and helped ourselves. A few minutes in, I started noticing people making eye contact with me, only to quickly look away. I wondered if there was something wrong with my appearance. Despite the strange atmosphere, the four of us were having a good time. However, Dan soon grew bored and excused himself to smoke in his car. We teased that it was because he wasn't drinking. Shortly after Dan left, a group of girls approached us, flirting shamelessly. They joked about an entrance fee, which I initially found amusing, until I realized they were serious. They offered us a bottle of tequila, which we readily accepted. The six of us spent the rest of the night together, drinking, talking, and dancing. Things were going well until I noticed a peculiar mark on Gina's neck, a thin, green line that looked like it had been drawn with a Sharpie. I debated asking her about it, but decided against it, not wanting to offend her. I tried to brush it off as a birthmark or makeup, but the image lingered in my mind. I chose to let it go and continued flirting with Gina, curious to see where the night would lead. I watched as Dave and his companion slipped upstairs, feeling a sense of relief. Soon after, Clint and his partner followed suit. I was hesitant to make any suggestive moves with Gina, fearing I might ruin the moment. Despite the alcohol, I felt my anxiety spike and I began to sweat. I excused myself to the bathroom, telling Gina I'd be right back. As I waited outside the occupied bathroom, a tall, older man emerged, dressed in a crisp white button-down and linen pants. We collided, and I expected an apology, but instead he stood there, staring at me with an unsettling blank expression. I felt uneasy and was about to speak up when I noticed the same green line on his neck that I had seen on Gina. Defying my better judgment, I asked him what his problem was. He smirked, shook his head, and asked who had invited me. I hesitantly mentioned Clara, the girl who had stood up Clint. The man chuckled, looked up as if recalling something, and then his smile vanished. In a low tone, he repeated Clara's name and gestured around the party, asking if I saw her there. I was taken aback, unsure how to respond. I slammed the door shut, reeling from the strange encounter. I couldn't shake off the feeling that something was off, and I regretted not pressing him for more information. I left the bathroom, searching for the mysterious man, but he was nowhere to be found. As I walked through the party, I noticed more people eyeing me suspiciously, but I brushed it off, my mind still reeling from the bizarre conversation. As I navigated through the party, my mind was consumed by the eerie green mark I'd seen earlier. I began discreetly examining people's necks, searching for more evidence. To my horror, I spotted two additional individuals with identical green lines on their necks. The markings were unsettlingly uniform in color, length, and thickness. I continued to scan the crowd, searching for the mysterious man while also analyzing people's necks. Although most party-goers appeared unmarked, I caught glimpses of the green lines on several others. My anxiety spiked, and I knew I had to find my friends and leave. As I ascended the stairs, I met Dave and Clint, who were heading downstairs. I ushered them into an empty hallway, eager to share my disturbing theory. However, they dismissed my concerns, attributing my paranoia to intoxication. They teased me about being jealous of their hookups, but I remained adamant that something was amiss. When I asked about their companions, they revealed that the girls had instructed them to meet back upstairs in 20 minutes. I realized that my friends were under some sort of spell, and I needed to snap them out of it. Just as I was about to give up, Clint turned, revealing a thin red line on his neck. I was horrified, and my reaction finally got their attention. I examined Dave's neck, finding an identical red mark. Clint attempted to downplay the discovery, suggesting it was just a makeup stain, but Dave began to share my concerns. I insisted that we leave immediately, but Clint refused, still enthralled by the prospect of meeting up with the girl again. Just as we were trying to process what was happening, a stranger walked by, giving each of us a deliberate once-over. He didn't say a word, but his brief pause allowed us to notice the unmistakable green line on his neck. That was the final straw. Dave and I hastily made a dash for the door with Clint close behind. As we exited, it felt like the entire party was watching us, but no one intervened. We sprinted to Don's car and urged him to drive away as quickly as possible. The moment we left, Clint and Dave's phones began blowing up with messages from the girls, demanding to know why we had left. It was unsettling that they knew we had departed, considering they weren't even present to see us go. My friends promptly blocked the girls' numbers. To this day, everyone I share this story with has their own wild theory about what transpired that night. I'm still unsure what to make of it, but I'm grateful that the stranger's appearance tipped me off. I'm not sure I want to know what might have happened if we had stayed. As a graduate student in civil engineering at Minnesota State University, I had settled into a comfortable routine. Classes were progressing well, I had made a few friends, and my apartment, although in a questionable part of town, was reasonably priced. The only drawback was the suspicious landlord. However, I wasn't concerned, feeling secure in my ability to take care of myself. After all, I was 25 already. That sense of security was shattered when my backpack was stolen from a lecture hall. I had carelessly left it unattended while using the restroom, and by the time I returned, it was gone. The lack of cameras in the area meant I had no proof of way to get it back. I was more irritated than worried, but the hassle of canceling cards, reporting missing keys, and replacing my laptop was daunting. I blocked my cards anyway and found an alternative laptop. All was well as I thought. It wasn't until a few days later that I realized the situation was far more sinister. Returning home from campus one evening, I found a cryptic, handwritten note slipped under my door. The message was chilling. I see you. There was no signature or indication of who had written it. I quickly connected the dots. The thief had accessed my laptop, discovered my address, and was now stalking me. But that was only the beginning. A more terrifying thought occurred to me. The thief had my apartment keys. My skin crawled as I looked over my shoulder, half expecting to see someone lurking. I hastily retreated into my apartment, slamming the door shut behind me. I took comfort in the fact that my apartment had a deadlock, which provided an added layer of security. However, over the next week, I continued to receive unsettling, handwritten notes with cryptic messages like "I know what you did" and "watch yourself." These ominous warnings were starting to unnerve me, and I couldn't shake the feeling that someone had uncovered something incriminating on my laptop. As the notes persisted, I found myself questioning whether I should involve the police. Would they even be able to help? I decided to wait it out, hoping that the perpetrator would eventually lose interest. One evening, as I was preparing for bed, I noticed a fleeting flash of light outside my window, as if someone had taken a photograph of me. My heart racing, I quickly closed the blinds, but the incident left me on edge. The strange occurrences escalated, with small items in my apartment being moved or rearranged. At first, I attributed it to my own carelessness, but as the events continued, I realized that someone was intentionally manipulating my environment. The final straw came when I returned home to find my bed stripped, my room ransacked, and my belongings scattered everywhere. I immediately contacted the police, but they seemed unconcerned, citing the lack of forced entry or stolen items. Frustrated and feeling betrayed, I begged my landlord to change the locks, but he dismissed my concerns, claiming it wasn't an emergency. I'm now considering taking matters into my own hands and changing the locks myself, but I'm hesitant to risk causing costly damage. As I write this, I'm still reeling from the events of the past 24 hours, and I'm not sure what the future holds. I'm too afraid to leave my room, so I skipped all my classes this morning. I'm still here, writing down everything that's happened, and I'm ready to confront whoever is behind this if they show up again. I'm pretty sure they've been through my laptop, so they know my class schedule. I'm thinking of hiding somewhere and catching them off guard if they try to enter while I'm supposed to be in class. I'm ready for whoever it is, even though I'm so scared to death. I'll still give an update of whatever happens later when I can. For now, bye and pray for me. This all started after I broke up with my boyfriend, Jeff, a few days ago. We'd been arguing for months, and it was clear things weren't working out. I blocked him on everything, thinking that was the end of it. I live in a small apartment near North Carolina State University's campus, and a few days after the breakup, I started hearing strange noises at night, quiet footsteps and shuffling sounds like someone was outside my window. I decided to overlook it and focus on an upcoming group project. But the disturbance outside my window each day never stopped. At first, I thought it was just my imagination, but eventually I realized it was probably Jeff. I wasn't too worried, though, because he's a kind and harmless guy. I figured he just missed me and would eventually get bored, but now I'm not so sure. The noises have continued, and I'm starting to feel like I'm being watched. That group project I mentioned earlier, it's about to get a whole lot more interesting. I spent the entire night meticulously editing our group project, ensuring everything was flawless before emailing it to our professor just before midnight. Feeling relieved that it was finally done, I went to bed, trying to push aside the other issues weighing on my mind. The next day in class, we were scheduled to present our video project. Our professor plugged in his laptop, pulled up the file I'd sent, and started playing the video. I was nervous but also proud of our work, knowing that my expert experience with Adobe products had helped us create a high-quality video. But as the video began to play, my stomach sank. It wasn't our project. Instead, a grainy video appeared showing someone wearing a Scream mask. The person in the mask wasn't just sitting there. They were spewing vile and disgusting comments about me, my professor, and even the government. The content was so disturbing that I don't even want to repeat it. My professor seemed just as shocked as I was, allowing the video to play for a few moments longer than he should have. The classroom fell silent, with all eyes on the disturbing video. When my professor finally paused the video, his face was ashen. I was paralyzed with mortification, unable to move or speak. I had never felt such intense humiliation in my life. I was frozen in place, my eyes welling up with tears, but I couldn't bring myself to cry. I could barely breathe, feeling the weight of hundreds of eyes upon me as the rest of the class stared at me in shock. After what felt like an eternity, I snapped out of my trance-like state and burst into tears, fleeing the lecture hall in a desperate attempt to escape the unbearable shame. I felt a panic attack looming, and for a moment I considered going home. However, I knew that abandoning class would likely result in expulsion, so I reluctantly waited outside the building for the class to end. Once the class had dismissed, I mustered the courage to approach my professor, pleading with him to believe that I had no idea what had happened. I assured him that I had sent the correct video, and he agreed to hear me out. After investigating, he confirmed that 2 videos had indeed been sent. The first one was our project, and the second, more recent one was the disturbing video that he had inadvertently played in class. Resolving the issue with the university was a time-consuming and frustrating process, but I eventually managed to clear my name. However, the humiliation lingered, and it became apparent that my email account had been compromised, which posed a much greater concern. I changed my password, attributing the incident to bad luck, but my troubles were far from over. Just a week later, I woke up to find myself logged out of Snapchat, indicating that someone had accessed my account. The thought of what the hacker might have discovered was unsettling, as I had shared sensitive information on the platform. I reported the incident to the police, who surprisingly agreed to question Jeff, my ex-boyfriend. After investigating, the police confirmed that Jeff was not responsible for the hacking. However, he did admit to posting my personal information on an online forum following our breakup. He claimed that he had not shared my passwords, but I had made the mistake of using easily guessable passwords and reused the same password across multiple accounts. The police informed me that there was little they could do, as Jeff was not responsible for the hacking. It was then that the full extent of my vulnerability hit me. An unknown individual had access to my sensitive information, leaving me open to potential blackmail. I promptly changed my passwords, but I feared it might be too late. The following weeks passed without incident, leading me to speculate that the perpetrator had likely backed off upon learning that I had involved the police and didn't want to risk being caught. I thought that was the end of the ordeal, but unfortunately, it was far from over. One day, a random person added me on Snapchat. While this wasn't unusual, what happened next was alarming. When I added them back, they began sending me pictures of me. I'm sure you can imagine the disturbing nature of these images. I quickly blocked the unknown person on Snapchat before they could send any threatening messages, which I suspected was their intention. Overwhelmed with fear and helplessness, I broke down in tears. For the next week, I received repeated friend requests from random Snapchat profiles, which I was certain were all connected to the same individual. I refused to accept their requests, fearful that they would attempt to blackmail me or demand money. This ongoing harassment has left me feeling desperate and trapped. With no concrete evidence or means of tracking down the perpetrator, the police are unable to intervene. The fact that this individual has access to my personal information, including my address, is a constant source of anxiety. I'm terrified that if I continue to ignore their attempts to contact me, they may escalate their actions. Given that they've already shown up outside my apartment, I fear for my safety. To any young women who may be reading this, I urge you to be cautious about the types of photos you store on your phone. I can only hope that my harasser will eventually lose interest and cease their torment. Until then, I'm left living in fear, unsure of when or if this nightmare will end.